This video is going to look at section 3.2, and so once again we're going to be looking further at cell structure and function, and in particular we will look at the anatomy of a eukaryotic cell. So we'll look at some of the structures that you will find in eukaryotic cells, in both animal and plant cells. Eukaryotic cells, they're structurally complex. They are distinguished by the presence of a well-defined nucleus, having a nuclear envelope, which contains the genetic material, and they also contain organelles, which are subcellular structures with defined functions. So subcellular, just simply referring to some of the smaller structures within the cell itself that you will find there. So these can include, of course, there's more than this, but these are the ones that we will be looking at: the plasma membrane, the cytoplasm, cell wall, the nucleus, ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi body, lysosomes, vesicles, mitochondria, chloroplasts, and the cytoskeleton. Animals, plants, fungi, and protists, they are all composed of eukaryotic cells. So here's a diagram of an animal cell, and showing many of the structures that we will look at in a little bit more detail. You can see the well-defined nucleus there again, and many of the structures, the subcellular structures within the cytoplasm. So that's the animal cell, and then we also have the plant cell here. And of course, there are a few differences between plant and animal cells, and some of the most notable ones would be the very obvious and large central vacuole, which you find in plant cells, which you don't find in animal cells. Also, the plant cells have the chloroplasts, which you do not find in animal cells. One thing to note, though, is that you do have mitochondria both in plant and animal cells, because plant cells have to derive energy from some of the carbohydrates that they produce as well. So they have to be dealt with in the mitochondria as well. So in the mitochondria is where the carbohydrates are actually broken down for energy. So plant cells need to do that as well as animal cells. And then the other obvious one with plant cells is that you find the cell wall, whereas you do not find those in the animal cell. So looking first at the plasma membrane, so all cells are surrounded by a plasma membrane, or also referred to as the cell membrane. It consists of the phospholipid bilayer, which is embedded with their protein. So the cell membrane, it separates the living contents of the cell from the surrounding environment. So inside the cell is a kind of a semi-fluid medium referred to as the cytoplasm, and it's composed of water, salts, and dissolved organic molecules. The cell membrane, it regulates the entrance and exit of molecules into and out of the cytoplasm. So it's the cell membrane which decides what's going to enter the cell and what's not. The cell wall, some eukaryotic cells have permeable but protective cell walls in addition to cell membranes, and many plant cells have primary and secondary cell walls. The primary cell walls usually contain cellulose, and the secondary cell walls often contain lignin, and some fungi have chitin as a material for the secondary cell wall. The nucleus then is where the genetic information is stored, and it's the chromatin which contains the DNA and proteins, and condensed chromatin then will form the chromosomes, but most of the time the DNA is in the form of chromatin, except for when the cells divide, and then the chromatin condenses into chromosomes. The nuclear envelope, it separates the nucleus from the cytoplasm and contains the nuclear pores, which allows materials to move from the nucleus into the cytoplasm and vice versa. Ribosomes are responsible for protein synthesis, so this is where protein synthesis takes place. And so they are composed of large and smaller subunits as well as ribosomal RNA. They associate with messenger RNA, mRNA stands for messenger RNA, during protein synthesis, and so can be found as polyribosomes, which several are associated with a single messenger RNA. So you can see here that you find the ribosomes on the endoplasmic reticulum right adjacent to the nuclear envelope. The endomembrane system, this is the system which is for the transportation and processing of materials of the cell. So it consists of begins with the nuclear envelope itself, and then it extends outward from there into the endoplasmic reticulum, which is a system of membranous channels and sacs where proteins are synthesized and processed either in the rough ER with the ribosomes, and phospholipids then are made in the smooth endoplasmic reticulum where you don't find the ribosomes. The Golgi apparatus is the shipping center of the cell, basically. So it's where these materials then are packaged and further transferred from there. Lysosomes and vacuoles, these are larger storage units. They're more prominent in plant cells. So here's a diagram of that. You can see the endoplasmic reticulum, basically an extension of the nuclear envelope. Adjacent to that, you find the rough endoplasmic reticulum with the ribosomes, and then as you go out further, you note the absence of the ribosomes, where you have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The Golgi apparatus then, these are flattened sacs where the collection, packaging, and distribution of proteins and lipids occurs, and produces lysosomes. And the lysosomes contain the hydrolytic digestive enzymes. So in other words, the enzymes that will actually break down the cell, which would occur. These materials would be released upon the death of the cell. And also acts as the garbage disposal for the cell. So it will just attach to the membrane of the cell and then empty its contents into the fluid that's outside of the cell. So here's again diagrammatic representation of that. And so once again, you can see that the Golgi apparatus in the middle there packages the materials and then into various materials. Various materials are packaged and then dealt with as need be. And you can also see some of the some materials that are that come into the cell through the cell membrane, which kind of surrounds it and then enters the cell from there. Peroxisomes are similar to lysosomes. They're membrane-bound vesicles that enclose enzymes, and typically peroxisomes, they contain enzymes that produce hydrogen peroxide. It is a toxic material, and it's broken down by an enzyme to oxygen and water. Peroxisomes are most prevalent in cells that synthesize and break down fats. So, for example, cells in the liver do that. So as far as the energy provided are energy-related organelles in the cell. First of all, we have chloroplasts, which you find only in plant cells, obviously. And the chloroplasts, then they use the solar energy to synthesize carbohydrates, which is the process known as photosynthesis. And so here you can see a very general equation of that particular of those particular reactions. Mitochondria, and again note that mitochondria are found in both plant and animal cells, they break down carbohydrates to produce energy in the form of ATP. So these two processes are ongoing in order to keep our planet in as much as possible in balance with oxygen and carbohydrates to be used for plant and animal cells for energy. And it all begins with solar energy, basically. So everything depends upon the energy that the Earth gets from the sun. So here's the chloroplast, again, which you find only in plant cells and algae. They're bound by two membranes that enclose the fluid-filled stroma. It is these structures which is responsible for the green color of most plant cells. Within the stroma are what are referred to as thylakoids, and they're stacked as grana within the chloroplast. And you can see the other structures in that diagram there. So here we have the mitochondria then. They are present in all eukaryotic cells, as we mentioned. They're bound by two membranes that enclose the matrix of the mitochondria, and you have a fluid-filled region that contains ribosomes and DNA. So the inner membrane, it folds in on itself to form what are referred to as cristae. And so that covers the structures that we will look at. Here they are all listed for you in a table form with a very brief description of their composition and their function. So here are some that we looked at, and then here are the other ones. So that covers the structures within the cell that we will look at for the most part. We will continue looking at the cytoskeleton of the cell, and that will be in the next video.